Hey all, Jamie here, and today I'm just going to have a little bit of a chat about why I've decided to return to motorcycling as I turn 40. Let's go for a ride. God, it is a gorgeous afternoon here, Saturday afternoon, and I've just brought the bike out to some back country lanes just to give it a little bit of a run. It's been we've had a lot of wet weather lately since I bought this. Actually, the very day that it got delivered, my Kawasaki Z650RS, we had a run of beautiful, pristine 23-degree sunny days here, and literally the day it got delivered, it just rained for a week. Oh, some little llamas or alpacas there. Hello, ladies. So it's been a little while since I've been able to get this out on the road. Believe it or not, this is actually my third or fourth ride on this bike since I bought it. And this is the first time that I've been riding in 10 years. I bought my first bike when I was 24, I want to say. Absolutely loved it. A little Honda VTR 250, beautiful little learner bike. Absolutely adored that thing. And I had that for 5 years before I had to sell it up. Now, when I bought that bike, it came as an absolute surprise to everyone. I'd had no interest in motorcycling at all before that point. I'd never talked about motorcycles, never ridden a motorcycle before, never had anything to do with anyone who had motorcycles. And basically, I sort of just watched you and Charlie ride around the world and thought, you know what? That's it. That's a little bit of me right there. A couple of weeks later, I was riding down to Brisbane to pick up my first ever motorbike. So that came as a little bit of surprise to a lot of people, myself included, if I'm being honest. And it was about, like I said, I had the bike for 5 years. So about 5 years later that I was diagnosed with bipolar. And looking back, it's very clear and obvious that, you know, that was a manic crash out. One of my biggest ones, in fact, which is probably, you know, not that bad, to be honest. But the interesting thing is that even though it was sort of like a flight of fancy at the time, I grew to love it. I grew to absolutely adore riding that bike and just, you know, getting it out and about on sort of like country roads. I was living near the beach at the time, had a beautiful hinterland that I could ride around, and would often ride it sort of a few hours out into the country and back on day trips and weekend trips, and I just had such a good time with it. But I think when I got diagnosed, it put a lot of things into perspective for me at the time, and I sort of became, well, a bit fearful, to be honest. Not fearful of riding or riding the bike, but I think more sort of fearful of what the bike represented. This potential that I could do things like that were so spontaneous and out of nowhere, you know. And so I gave it up. I had to give it up. I lost my job at the time, again, bipolar related. And we needed the money, and the bike had to go. And again, at the time, I wasn't all that sad to see it go. I sort of, like, you know, when I had that realization, sort of almost fell out of love with riding. Oh, look at that. I don't know if you can see that wedge-tailed eagle up there. Look. Oh my Lord. Gorgeous. It's huge. Absolutely stunning. Wow. Yeah, so that sort of tarnished that whole thing for me. And I put it away and I didn't come back to it. I just sort of put it out of mind and thought, well, that was my motorcycling phase done. And I found that I did that with a lot of things, in fact, that I loved at the time, sort of put them away. Almost, again, fearful of what those things represented, that time in my life, that really difficult time, and what those things meant, and constantly worried about that happening again. And so I lived my life, I think, for the next decade in quite a restricted way, a very, I'm trying to find the right word. Anyway, the word escapes me. Insert your own synonym for fearful here. And trepidatious, there it is. I knew I'd get it. Trepidatious. About engaging with anything that brought me joy. Because I just became very worried and very fearful about what it could mean. And then my good friend Alan, who I love very much, he went and got his learner's license for his L plates on his motorcycling learner's license. And obviously he can't ride with anybody on a learner's license. He can't ride on his own. He needs to ride with somebody. And I had my motorcycle license, and so he started sort of talking about wanting to get into motorcycling and getting a bike. And I just sort of and this is going back sort of 12 months ago now from today, just sort of started to think about it, and mull it over, and just, especially as we come into autumn every year, you look at those beautiful, especially in living sort of in a country town like I do, you get those absolutely gorgeous, sunny 22, 23 degree days. The weather is just spectacular at that time of year. And every year at autumn time, you'd walk outside and look into the blue sky, and I'd just think, Christ, I miss my bike. God, I miss riding my bike, And I found that once I had a friend who started to talk about that and show interest in that, it made me think about it again. And this was a long process for me, and a very difficult process, if I'm being honest. I think I had to really sort of confront a lot of past demons, and really look at myself and give myself permission, I suppose, to accept that the past is the past. I've heard this beautiful quote, this amazing quote that really sort of was a slap in the face when I heard it. That said, I believe it's a Greek philosopher, as all good quotes tend to come from, that says, "A man never steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he is not the same man." And I just thought, wow, that's it right there. And I'd been doing a lot of work on myself, a lot of therapy, seeing psychologists, etc., a lot of work around mindfulness, and I've become very self-aware around my condition these days. Again, we're fast forwarding a decade at this point. I've lived with this for a very long time. I'm very cognizant of what it is and what it means. And I just found I found myself constantly being anchored and fearful of past Jamie, of the me from before, of yesteryear, and always being worried and measuring myself against him. And that's, I wasn't being fair to myself at all, I realized. And it took a lot of work for me to make that realization, a lot of work. But I made that realization, and I can see now that is the case. And I sort of came to this crossing point, I suppose, this crossroads, where I had to sort of really have a good hard look at myself and say to myself, look, do you actually believe in the work that you're doing, or are you just smiling and nodding and going along with it? Which is it? Because if you actually believe in the work that you're doing, then you need to step over that line and put the past behind you. and realize that it's okay to do things that bring you joy, and it's okay to do things that are just for you. The first motorcycle I bought would probably be the last thing I ever really truly did that was just for me. And so, yeah, I sort of very, very harshly confronted that line and had to make that choice about whether I was going to step over it or not. I think I might just drop a U-turn here, actually. And we'll head back the way we came. I'm in a tiny little town here called Gumbunji, which I sadly don't know a whole lot about, and that's sort of part of this whole thing, is I don't know a lot about the area that I live and the surrounding areas that I live. And there's lots of places that I've never sort of been out and had a look around and seen. So that's sort of one of the benefits of doing this whole thing for me, I think. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So I decided to go for it, essentially, just riding along with my indicator on there. It's been a while, guys. I'm still shaking the rust out, okay? Cut me some slack. So yeah, I decided to step over that line, and I did a lot of research, took a good hard look at myself, and I've decided to go ahead and do that, to leave the past in the past, and I bought my motorbike. I bought my first motorcycle in 10 years. And I have to say, I love it. I love this, you know, this feeling of just riding along. Ooh, there we go, the famous Gumbunji sculptures. My daughter says they look like something out of Five Nights at Freddy's. They're a bit nightmare fuelish. So that brings us to here now, and I'm glad I've done it. I really am. I felt very, in the lead up to it, I felt incredibly guilty. There was always that word should, right? That should. You should be doing other things. You should be putting that money away. You should be this, that, and the other, right? But the reality is that it was a time that I needed to invest into myself, and I think that this motorbike is representative of that for me, because it's not actually about the motorcycle at the end of the day. It's about stepping over that line and being brave enough to look forward rather than always looking backwards. And it's something that I love, you know. I genuinely do love it. It's not just a phase. It's not just a manic crash out. It's like, look, like I'm just out here and I just love riding my motorbike, you know. I think for me, I love doing things like, you know, I climb mountains and I go hiking a lot, and rainforests and all that sort of thing. I love that. I love adventure, and I love sort of escaping out into the world, I suppose. And, you know, just bringing your bike out onto some backcountry lanes, you know, 20 minutes or so from where I live, gives me that same feeling. It gives me that, like, this is a little adventure for me. And it just, like, it's like a detox for your mind, I think. It's so soul cleansing, and I think anybody who's ridden a motorbike will echo that. So as I said, I'm just about to turn 40, and this was just my little 40th birthday present to myself, I suppose, for the year. And again, not just the motorbike, but the investment in self, I think, was the gift. And I'm glad I did that. You know, 40 years old, people can say, you know, how stereotypical is it that you bought a motorbike at 40, midlife crisis, blah, 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 all that shit. And, you know, yes, I am aware of how it looks. I don't particularly care, you know. Sure, some of that is true, you know, like, you only get one crack at this life thing, and then it's all over. As Keanu Reeves, you know, very rightly said, none of us are making it out of this alive. So enjoy it. And this is me enjoying it. I plan on making a separate video about, you know, the bike, why I chose the bike, the gear, all that sort of thing. So I'll do that at some point. I'm actually out here today, in addition to having a chat, I'm trying to find like a little backcountry lane that I can set the camera up on and do like a little ride by as a sort of like intro video stinger to put at the start of my rides. Which, if I was successful, you probably have already seen at the start of this video. But surely there's got to be one out here somewhere, even if I just do it on this highway, actually, because there's nobody around. Like, look at this. There's just like, I don't know if you can see in my rearview mirror, like it's just empty for a Saturday. Some galahs, flock of galahs. Hey fellas. I mean, what would you rather be doing right now, you know? In this weather on a day like this. Spectacular. Ooh, could this be it? Could this be our country lane? Yes, I think that will do just nicely, actually. Ooh, slippy gravel. I think we found our country lane. This looks like it'll do. All right, let's pull over here somewhere. Is there a nice flat spot? Oh, up a bit further actually. There's a nice little side area up here. There we go. Perfect. All right, let's get the camera set up and do a little drive-by. Go, mission accomplished. Another one out for a beautiful day. Ooh, there's a waiver. Yikes. Don't get many waivers. Unless we get nodders. Should I be a waiver? I don't know, maybe. So that's my story in a very, very tiny little nutshell. So welcome to the channel. I guess, you know, I wanted to share it because I feel I can't surely be the only person in a similar sort of position with a similar sort of mindset going through similar sorts of things, you know. So I guess my hope is that if I sort of document this journey and share it with you, that it might, you know, make other people think about doing something similar or returning to motorcycling if they've given it out for similar sorts of reasons. That would be incredible. Oh, watch out, birds. Better get out of the way. Hello, ladies. God, you just don't get like the smells and things. I think it's the smells that I most notice riding a bike as opposed to the car. Oh, back up past the Outbackers again. Hello. You just feel so much more out and in it, you know what I mean? Like you're so cut off from everything and checked out in a car, I feel. Whereas on a motorbike, you're out there, man. Like you're just out there, part of it. There's nothing like it. Man, for how windy it feels on this naked bike, that windmill ain't moving much. So I hope this video turns out okay, the sound's okay. Like I said, I'll do another video talking about all my gear and what I've got, what my setup is, in case anyone wants to do something similar. But my plan is basically just to document the journey, you know, of shaking the cobwebs out, shaking the rust out, getting back on the bike, coming back to this this thing that I love after a decade away, and just taking you along on the rides with me. So if that sounds interesting at all, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down the bottom there. Like the video if it's something you enjoyed. All that is obviously very much appreciated for a brand new channel starting out for the first time. Well, thanks for coming on the ride, everyone, with me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next ride.